What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Kingdom Crew podcast. I am your host, Josh Fan of Show Me Football, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Darcy of KC Sports Report and Bleacher Report. And today, we have come together to kind of preview a little bit some Chiefs free agent stuff, just talk about some recent news around the NFL, and me and Michael are going to kind of give you guys what we're expecting in free agency here in a couple weeks and some of the upcoming free agents that we like. So anyway, Michael, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic, Josh. I just got back from KU, Texas at Allen Fieldhouse. The Jayhawks just crushed Texas. And I know that you're a Mizzou fan and you're going to have to deal with Texas next year in the SEC. But for their last matchup in Allen Fieldhouse, they got thrashed. So that was a lot of fun. And I'm ready to talk Chiefs offseason. You know, we've been in this position the past 2 seasons where the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl. And we're breaking down how this team could get even better and compete for another one. And Josh, they're not that far away from, making a couple moves and being right back in that game.
Yeah, man, it's going to be an exciting offseason because I feel like the Chiefs really have a chance here to three-peat. Like obviously they're always going to have a chance, but it really feels like, again, we talked about it even leading up to the Super Bowl and after they won the Super Bowl about how it kind of feels like we were able to steal one this year, and we could be so much better next year. It's going to be hard for us to be worse. Let's start with this. So earlier this week, it was announced, the NFL announced the new cap space for the league year of 2024. And it looks like there was even more cap space than was originally expected. There was a huge jump with the new TV deals and everything kicking in, all the viewership that the NFL got this year. The cap jumped all the way up to like $255 million. And I saw the initial reaction from a lot of Chiefs Twitter was, okay, well, this gives us a little bit better of a chance to keep Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. Those are obviously the 2 biggest free agents that the Chiefs have this upcoming offseason. There's a lot of talk, a lot of debate about what the Chiefs are going to do with both of them. And we'll share our opinions too a little bit later on. But Michael, did you see the news about the jump in cap space, and what's kind of your thoughts there?
I did. And it's funny because it seems like every year we've been talking about this happening. Like every offseason, we're like, well, the cap's going to get bigger. The cap's going to get bigger. And it never did. And so to see the salary cap rise that $30 million, I mean, Josh, that's a substantial amount of money. I don't remember exactly where it came from, but at the end of the day, that's going to allow the Chiefs to make a couple more moves in free agency that otherwise they wouldn't have been able to make. And who knows if that one signing is something like a Drew Tranquill signing, who you saw how good Drew Tranquill was in that Super Bowl. You don't win the game probably without him. So I think that $30 million is definitely not anything to sneeze at, and it's going to help this Chiefs team, add more pieces to an already pretty stacked roster. So I'm a huge fan of it. I've been waiting for it for a long time, but it kind of just feels like the Chiefs got an extra boost in terms of trying to three-peat, having $30 more million that they can go spend on a L'Jarius Sneed extension or a Chris Jones extension, and that's a great thing to see.
It definitely gives the Chiefs a better chance to keep both of them than before. However, it is a little bit of a double-edged sword because with the cap rising and that unexpected jump that we didn't know we were going to get before, yes, the Chiefs have more money to spend, but at the same time, because of where the cap space is, players could technically demand a little bit more because that market's going to get reset again. So maybe Chris Jones is going, look at that cap space. Maybe I am worth $30 million per year. And then negotiations get a little bit tougher. But it was always going to be tough no matter what to keep Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm going to try to push that off just for now. I got it at the bottom of the screen. So I wanted to talk to you about this because this happened like a few hours ago. But Eric Bieniemy got hired as the offensive coordinator at UCLA. And of course, Eric Bieniemy wasn't on the Chiefs staff this past season. Everybody knows that. But there was some rumblings about him maybe rejoining the staff. And he obviously came and talked to the team prior to the AFC Championship game and got the guys fired up. And apparently they got all misty-eyed and everything like that because of EB's return. So yeah, there were some talks that maybe he'd rejoin the staff, but instead he takes an offensive coordinator job down at the college level. What's your reaction to that, Michael?
Unfortunately, I think that Eric Bieniemy might have just made his exit from the NFL permanently. I don't really see him coming back in anything more than a assistant. Honestly, I think that the year away from Andy Reid probably showed us that he's not the coordinator that we thought he was. When your head coach is Andy Reid, one of the best offensive masterminds of all time, yeah, it's going to be pretty easy to call the plays. He really wasn't calling the plays. The offensive coordinator position in Kansas City is more like a assistant to Andy Reid. And as the head coach who is calling the plays, Bieniemy did a good job, but Andy Reid's the guy that's calling the shots at the end of the day. He went to Washington, didn't have a lot of success there. Ron Rivera, I believe he got fired. So they're having a complete change in direction in Washington. And I think Bieniemy probably learned how hard it is to coach in the NFL when you don't have Andy Reid. And I just think it's so hard for a coach to downgrade from going from the NFL to college and to make that comeback. It's going to be difficult. I really can't see it. And if he does come back to the NFL, I think his head coaching chances are gone.
Yeah, so when I saw this news, my first reaction was, okay, I think Eric Bieniemy is finally waving the white flag on the NFL. He's saying, well, I went from an offensive coordinator to an offensive coordinator for a worse team to my boss getting fired, not being retained, didn't get hired for an OC job anywhere else. There was always that storyline of why is nobody hiring Eric Bieniemy? We went like 2 or 3 hiring cycles without Eric Bieniemy being plucked from the chief staff. And I think we all kind of started to wonder, sure, there's something else going on here. We don't know what it is, but there's something going on here. People have their opinions on what the reasoning is, but I mean, you've seen other offensive coordinators that work under great head coaches. You saw other assistants off the chief staff, like Mike Kafka, get hired or get promoted out of other places before Eric Bieniemy did. So I feel like Eric Bieniemy just kind of saw the writing on the wall, and he's like, look, I'm not taking a step down. I'm not going back to being a running backs coach or a position coach. Like, I'm just going to go to the college route, and maybe I can get hired as a head coach in college, and maybe one day he can make his way back to the NFL by impressing as a college head coach or something. But to me, this seemed like Eric Bieniemy waving the white flag on the NFL.
It just kind of feels like that. And it sucks because he was the offensive coordinator on a team that won 2 Super Bowls and went to 3. And man, you just feel like he should have got the chance at being a head coach, because there's a lot of really bad head coaches in the NFL. And he at least deserved a shot. But I think that the main concern around the league
bad offensive coordinators too.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of there's just bad coaches everywhere. But Eric Bieniemy was one of the best, candidates in the NFL for the past couple of years now. And I think that, just like with some players in free agency, if they're not signed right away, there's a problem. There's a question mark, and they're not going to go for what you originally thought. And Eric Bieniemy, once he didn't get hired after that first coaching cycle, when there was a lot of openings, I was like, all right, we are never going to see Eric Bieniemy become a head coach. And then him going to Washington was his, I guess, last-ditch effort to become a head coach, and I think it regressed. So it really sucks for him. He deserves an opportunity, but I don't think he's ever going to get it. And I think he's probably going to carve out a pretty good college coaching career. He might come back to the NFL if, maybe Nagy gets picked up to go somewhere if he does really well. But I think he's probably going to stay in college unless, a head coaching job in the NFL opens up. Hello? Go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, obviously we had to kind of redo there, but yeah, I think that's Eric Bieniemy waving the white flag on the NFL with him going to UCLA.
Yeah, I think that he deserved an opportunity to coach in the NFL. There's a lot of really bad coaches and coordinators that got that shot, and for a guy that has been so consistently good, at least he was with the Chiefs, he at least deserved a look, a chance. But sometimes, the guys that deserve chances don't get those chances, and you kind of just have to roll with that. And, he went to Washington with the hopes of maybe proving something, changing the narrative around his name, and it didn't end up happening. But I think he's probably going to carve out a pretty good college coaching career. He will be a head coach in college. If he's not a head coach in college, something is very wrong. But I do think that he becomes a head coach in college. Maybe he comes back to the NFL one day, but the only way that I see that happening is if an NFL head coaching job opens up, and we don't see a ton of college head coaches make the transition straight to the NFL. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what the deal is, but good luck to Eric Bieniemy. But I just kind of wanted to discuss that because there were those rumors that maybe he comes back to the Chiefs in some capacity, and now he's off to the college ranks. But let's move on to some more Kansas City Chiefs free agency stuff. So, Michael, I made a video a couple days ago, kind of that keeper cut thing that we usually do every year. I did one by myself a couple of days ago, and I went down the list of impending Chiefs free agents. Now, I want to do this with you because I'm curious your thoughts. We don't have to spend like 5 minutes on every single guy, but I'm going to give you a name and just kind of a couple sentence summary on what you think of this player heading into free agency. You ready for this?
Yep. Let's go.
All right. Chris Jones.
You got to keep him. Chris Jones is priority number one. We'll talk about that later, but you got to keep him.
Yeah, for sure. I think we agree there. McCole Hardman.
No. McCole Hardman is the most replaceable guy of all. Listen, he caught the winning touchdown in the Super Bowl, but I think that if you would have thrown me out there and had me run the same route, I would have also caught that ball. So I don't think that he is going to be back on the team. It's a great story, but no, you can cut him.
Let's be real. Travis Kelce is the real reason Corn Dog works so well because it all is designed to have him go inside, and so the DB gets distracted because they're like, "Oh, I gotta watch Travis Kelce," and that's what allows those guys like McCole Hardman, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney to get open. But anyway, I'll move on. We don't have to spend any more time on that. Mike Edwards,
bring him back. I like Mike Edwards a lot. I think he was a really good piece that Brett Veach brought in over the offseason. Was pretty underrated, and he's not only is he a ball hawk, he hits hard. Like he's a guy that I want back there setting the tone for the defense. And he'd be like a 1 year, $7 million contract top.
Oh, I think it'd be less than that. He was on 1 year, $3 million this past season.
Okay, I thought he was making $5. No, yeah, you could definitely get it. Honestly, why not throw out like a 2 year for $7 million contract? Just
sure, yeah,
get him here for 2 more years. Maybe make it team friendly. I don't know who says no to that.
For sure, I like Mike Edwards. All right, Drew Tranquill.
Absolutely. I think one of the reasons the Chiefs were so successful this year is for the first time in my time covering this team, they had a good linebacking core in all three spots. And you're losing Willie Gay more than likely, but I do think that Drew Tranquill, for the signing that he was, I think he wants to be here. You saw him during the parade. He's basically like, this is not what happens in Los Angeles. The Chiefs are the winning team. They are the winning culture. I think he would probably take a team discount to stay here. But even if he doesn't, I think this guy's got to be on the top of Brett Veach's priorities because he is so good at getting to the running back behind the line of scrimmage. And without him, you don't win that Super Bowl. So I think that you got to bring him back if it makes financial sense.
For sure. I think we're both in agreement there on Drew Tranquill. He was an integral part of the linebacking core. Next, Donovan Smith.
Oof.
Yeah, I was kind of like on the fence with this one. I'll say this because I feel like this is kind of what you want to say. Donovan Smith, if you bring him back, I'm not going to complain about it. He's a nice insurance guy, nice depth piece at tackle. Because I think we both agree that Wanye Morris is probably the plan, but you need like that veteran for him to compete with and win the spot in camp and preseason.
Yeah, for that reason, I would take a look at it.
Or someone else. Like, it doesn't have to be Donovan Smith, but like a veteran left tackle type guy.
When you were talking about that, I just went forward 20 years and was thinking about like the Super Bowl, and we're not going to remember that Donovan Smith was a starting left tackle in a Chiefs Super Bowl. There's no chance that we remember that at all.
Just one of those 1 year guys. It's like, he was on the team.
It's like, oh, what a great stretch of games, but I'm never going to be like, oh, Donovan Smith left tackle for this Chiefs team, legendary. No, I think you could replace him. The problem is I don't love Morris starting at left tackle. I know he showed it at times this year that he could do it, but there would be a lot of growing pains. And if you could get somebody more established, I would do that. Do you know what Smith was making this year?
$3 million is what they have as his AAV. I know it was like a 1 year, $9 million deal, but it was a ton of incentives that we don't really know what they were. So probably somewhere between like 5 and 9 million is what he actually saw this year, is what I'm thinking.
I wouldn't be against that kind of a contract. I mean, Donovan Smith for, I don't want to say that he's mediocre, but he's just, he's solid.
He's all right.
He'll do the job. He'll do the job. He will, fill in the gap, like you said. I'm indifferent on this one. You can bring him back or you don't have to bring him back. I don't really care. He's not a long-term solution, but if they aren't confident that they have a solution left tackle with Wanya Morris, I think they should probably bring him back.
For sure. All right, CEH.
No. The Clyde Edwards-Helaire experience is over. And I will say, for as much as we have given him shit over the last 3-4 years, he was actually pretty decent this year in a year where nobody on the Chiefs offense was going to step up and make plays. He actually made some big plays down the stretch. Obviously, He had his moments where he returned to the old Clyde Edwards-Helaire, having fumbles in that AFC wildcard game. And then I think did he fumble the ball again? I can't remember, but
I don't think so. But
okay.
Against Miami, he did at the end of the game.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, I'm appreciative of Clyde. He obviously never lived up to the hype in Kansas City of what he should have been. But, they really milked all they could out of him. And I think that he should go find another home somewhere else.
Yeah, I think you could add some more juice. Somebody with more chops than Edwards-Helaire in free agency. So next on the list is Tommy Townsend. So you probably saw the news that we signed Matt Araiza. Gotta imagine that means Tommy Townsend is gone. He's an all-pro punter, probably looking to get some money. The Chiefs found the cheaper alternative that they said, hey, this guy might, he has the potential to be the best punter in NFL history. I mean, he's got a massive leg. I know I didn't start off with the Matt Araiza signing, but go ahead and take over there.
Yeah. Honestly, I love the signing. Obviously, there's some off-the-field stuff that got cleared up, and I'm honestly surprised. I haven't really been paying attention to the situation, but that stuff all got cleared up. And like you said, his leg is phenomenal. He's got a giant leg, and I think the Chiefs were probably not the only team in on him, but when you're the defending Super Bowl champions, you kind of get to sign who you want to sign. And I do think that I don't want to say it's an upgrade just because we don't really know what Araiza is going to do. Like Tommy Townsend, while he was an all-pro punter, you knew what you were going to get from him. But I think the chance that you get something more from Araiza is a lot higher. I think he's got more potential, and he can flip the field a lot better than Tommy Townsend can. So for that reason, I like this signing. And I do think that, we've always been like this with punters. Like, I know that we were like, oh, how could they move off of Dustin Colquitt? But then you look back, and Dustin Colquitt wasn't really that good for the last 5 years of his career in Kansas City, but he hung on it. And Tommy Townsend hasn't been like bad. Obviously, he's an all-pro punter, but you could definitely,
he would shank one every once in a while. It'd be like, Tommy Townsend had a big leg too. He was a good punter, but then it was like, oh god, there's that bad Tommy Townsend punt that you get like once every few weeks. And Araiza, like he got drafted. Like you had to be a damn good punter to actually get selected in the NFL draft. And he got selected by the Buffalo Bills, and they were expecting big things out of him. So kind of like the reverse Kareem Hunt there almost.
Yeah, well, hopefully he's got a little bit more left in the tank than Kareem Hunt did at the time. But yeah, I clearly Andy Reid's the biggest believer in giving players a second chance. And the stuff that Matt Araiza got acquitted of it, like it ended up not being true. But man, I remember when that came out at the time, that was some heinous stuff. So I'm glad that I guess got proven to be false. But
well, the way I see it, it's like his defense was able to prove that he was not present where the crime was committed at the time that it was alleged. So it's like, That's pretty damning right there. If he wasn't there, he had an alibi, then I'm not going to hold the dude down for the rest of his life because of false accusations. And I said this in the video I don't want to speak in absolutes, but I think, he deserves a second chance because he's innocent until proven guilty. And it seems like he was falsely accused. So
yeah.
Anyway, we don't have to spend too much time on it. I'm trying to speed run through these free agents, but anyway, that's Tommy Townsend. He's probably not coming back. Nick Allegretti.
Yeah, I like Allegretti a lot. I think the market for him is not going to be too much. And for what he was able to do, not only this year, but he's always been a really reliable guard that could come in and give you, valuable snaps. And he was always consistent. And so I would love Allegretti to come back on a team-friendly contract. I mean, shoot, he's got 3 Super Bowls. So I think that he would probably want to come back for a team-friendly discount.
Yeah, and I mean, if he gets paid by somebody, good for him. And then if he does, I think you can move on and find another Nick Allegretti in the draft or something. In fact, your guy, Dominic Pooney out of Kansas, would be a nice replacement, maybe in the mid-rounds or something like that. So
tell you what, he would be good. He would be good.
Yeah, I went to high school with him. I don't know if you knew that, but
did you actually?
High school. Yeah, he went to Francis South Central. Yep, played with him, and he also football team? Yep, and he also had a brother named Dominic, or not Dominic. He is Dominic. He had a brother named Derek, who also was an undrafted free agent for the Dallas Cowboys a few years ago. So pretty athletic family. But yeah, I went to high school with Dominic.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Next up, we got Tershawn Wharton.
I'm going to say keep just because we're, kind of in limbo with what Charles Omenihu's injury timeline is going to be. But I think you could probably replace Tershawn Wharton depending on who you could find in the draft at, a good slot, or if Felix takes a jump. I've never been the guy that was super impressed with Tershawn Wharton. He kind of does his job. He's not going to be a super flashy player. I don't really care either way. I don't think this guy, if he's back, great. If he's not back, also great.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I feel like you can get some more talent in the defensive tackle room. I like Tershawn Wharton as well, but feels like he's kind of capped out where he's at. He just kind of is what he is at this point. And if he's still sitting there in free agency late in the game, sure, go ahead and bring him back as some depth, but we'll see what happens first, I think. That's kind of how I feel. All right, next is Prince Tega Wanogho. I don't even know if you really need to spend any time on this one. It's like, he's there to be a depth offensive tackle. If he's back, he's back. If not, he's not, right?
Exactly.
All right. James Winchester. I don't know if any other long snappers out there. James Chester is almost 35 years old. I would say, if he doesn't retire, you go ahead and bring him back. James Winchester, you just kind of keep bringing him back until he says he's done.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to spend too much time on the long snapper. So, yeah, bring him back. He wants to come back. If he doesn't, he doesn't.
Yeah, and then Willie Gay. I think we kind of touched on it, but
that one's so odd because I would love to have Willie Gay back. You could obviously improve, not athletically, but you could improve with somebody that could, play the position a little bit better. But apparently he was basically told that he's not coming back.
Yeah, that's what he says. He keeps saying on Twitter that it's his last year in KC and all this stuff, which if that's the case, I mean, you drafted Leo Chanel and he was pretty damn good in the Super Bowl. So if he just ends up taking more of a starter role, then it is what it is. And good luck to Willie Gay, man. I mean, it sounds like he thinks he's gone. So
yeah, I don't really understand. I don't clearly he was told this during the regular season too. There's something weird about that, but
yeah. Oh, well, I like Willie Gay, but I feel like he never really reached his full potential. All right, next we got Blaine Gabbert, kind of similar to James Winchester, unless he says, hey, I'm retiring, I'm out of here like Chad Henne did. He's probably going to be the backup again next year.
Yep.
And then we got Jerick McKinnon.
They have really done him dirty over the past couple seasons. He was so good in 2021, and I feel like they waited so long to give him the ball in 2021. They kind of discovered him too late, it seemed like. And then some of it was injury, bad luck. But then there was that weird thing last offseason where
he was tweeting about how like he didn't feel valued or anything, and he didn't get signed until like midway through training camp. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
But anyway, continue. I know I kind of interrupted.
I think he's one of those guys. He honestly might be one of those guys that if he's not a Chief, he's not anywhere, because we didn't give him that much money to come back this year. And, he came back, but he wasn't really that effective. And I like what he brings in terms of being a pass blocker, but I feel like they just don't utilize him like they should. And there's nothing we can really do about that, or he can do about that. And so I'm kind of indifferent. They bring him back, great. They don't, great. Like, I think you could probably get better at the position, but it just comes down to how you're being used. And he's not been used the correct way over the past couple seasons.
Well, he is like 32 years old, and I think that has something to do with it. And the Chiefs just not wanting to keep him healthy for the playoffs, because they tried to use him like he wanted to be used. And then he had that, I think it was a core muscle injury, and he almost missed the Super Bowl. Luckily, he was able to come back, but it's like, hey, Jarek, if you want to prolong your career, we kind of like just want to keep you on ice until the postseason. So I could see a situation where the Chiefs kind of maybe see what else is out there at running back, and then maybe sign Jarek McKinnon to the practice squad and keep him on ice until the postseason kind of thing. But
yeah.
We'll
I don't
see.
know. It'd be. I'm not against that. I like McKinnon, but it just seems like he has really declined in production over the past 2 years.
Yeah, I get it. All right, next is defensive tackle Derek Nottie. What are your thoughts there?
I've always loved Nottie, and I've been a Nottie truther, but at the same time, I kind of think that his time is done. You could definitely find guys that are more athletic, that are better getting to the quarterback, and can stop the run better. So I think Nottie was, he was really one of the first guys that came in here, draft pick wise, that draft class kind of changed the culture in Kansas City. And so I think that's why I loved him so much. But it just seems like, okay, we've had enough of the Derek Nottie experience. You can upgrade. We have Keandre Coburn. I don't know if he's going to develop, but you could definitely find another defensive tackle that can do what Nottie did.
Yeah, I think you could upgrade there. I'll just leave it at that. Richie James.
I would like to move on. I'd like to move on and find somebody else that could receive punts.
Yeah, you need you just need turnover in the wide receiver room.
Yeah, all of them. Get them out of here.
All right. We're getting down to our last few here. Blake Bell.
How old is Blake Bell?
32 and a half.
32 and a half. Sure. Bring him back. I don't really care.
He's kind of the fullback at this point. Like, he's on the roster as a tight end, but he's the fullback. So, whatever. Deion Bush, depth safety. If he's back, he's back. If he's gone, he's gone.
Yeah,
find another
I'd like him back, but it doesn't really matter either way.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to skip over Sneed here. We'll go back to Sneed, and then we'll just kind of start that conversation with him versus Jones. But after him, there's Jody Fortson. I don't know.
Probably not, honestly. I think his health has been a problem. I mean, he's a great special teamer, but either way, I'm not really too passionate.
Yeah, I think you could maybe even upgrade there in like free agency or something. Malik Herring.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Come back.
Yeah, pretty much. Mike Dana. So before you answer anything on this, I just want to say, because I posted this the other day on Twitter, I thought it was ridiculous. Yeah. His projected market value is $16.7 million per year. I'm sorry, but if any GM is given $16.7 million a year to Mike Dana, you can have him, because you can find a player 2 times as good as Mike Dana for half the price, because the Chiefs just did it last offseason in Charles Omenihu. They got a steal on Charles Omenihu's contract. I'm not giving 3 years, $50 million to Mike Dana. You can find another Mike Dana.
That is nuts. I wouldn't give Mike Dana more than 5. Like, he's just not worth that. And for that, if that's the price, absolutely not. But if you can get him for what I said, like 4 a year, then of course. I just don't think that he's replaceable. For sure.
I agree. All right. So now we're down to the last but not least, L'Jarius Sneed. What do you do here? And let's just get into the conversation of him versus Chris Jones, because this is kind of the debate right now. I think it's ideal that this team keeps both Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. But if they don't, Michael, what do you do here? Whose side are you on?
Here's the thing. It's so tough because L'Jarius Sneed, in my opinion, was one of probably the top 5 corners in the game this year. He was really good. And yeah, you hate to see him go, but we saw what the 49ers paid Charvarius Ward, the kind of money that he got. L'Jarius Sneed was better than Charvarius Ward ever was in Kansas City this year.
Yeah.
And that's scary because Charvarius Ward, was a good player, but he got great player money. If L'Jarius Sneed is a great player, what is he going to get? I mean, he could, I don't want to say reset the market, but
he could.
Who
Especially
knows?
with the cap going up, he could.
He might. And if that's the case, I think the best thing the Chiefs could do would be a tag and trade situation where they could franchise tag him, trade him for. Am I crazy for thinking you could get a late first-round draft pick for him?
I don't think so because, remember when Jalen Ramsey got traded a few years ago from
Jacksonville?
Was it the Jags to the Rams, right? He got 2 first-round picks. So if Jalen Ramsey is getting 2, and I know Sneed's a little bit older, I'm pretty sure, than Ramsey was when he got traded, but if Ramsey's getting 2 first, I would think he could get at least his first-round swap, right? Like maybe upgrade your first-round pick and then get like a second or a third as well. Because, I mean, we're talking about one of the top corners in the game here, and I know he didn't get all pro, but I think the people who do this for a job do understand how good he is. I made my video on Chris Jones versus L'Jarius Sneed, and I think we both agree that Jones is more important to keep if you have to pick one of them, just because he's an absolute game wrecker, and he saved 14 points in the Super Bowl. He saved 14 points in the divisional round game. And I don't say any of this to demean L'Jarius Sneed, but it's if I asked you if L'Jarius Sneed is still what he was without Chris Jones up front, you'd probably say no, right? Part of him being good is because of Chris Jones in the pass rush. But regardless if L'Jarius Sneed is back there or not, Chris Jones is still Chris Jones. Chris Jones is a future Hall of Famer. And again, I'm not saying this to demean L'Jarius Sneed, but this was his 1 year of elite production and elite play. And sometimes paying a guy off of one really good year, great year, can come back to bite you. We know Chris Jones is elite at this thing. He's done it for years. Year in and year out, Chris Jones has been an all-pro. And I don't see him slowing down in the next few years. I hate this, you can't pay a guy that's about to be 30 or going to be on the wrong side of 30. I just don't see, if Chris Jones signs a 3-year deal, I think he's still got 3 good years left in him. I think he can still be a double-digit sack guy for the next 3 years. I just think Chris Jones is more important. And also, I think you have to consider Brett Veach's track record addressing defensive line versus his track record addressing the defensive backfield. Veach has been able to find guys. And I saw the other day, Xavier Howard got released from the Dolphins. Obviously, he's not as good as he once was, but you could sign Xavier Howard in free agency and then draft a guy in the 3rd round or something. And I think you're fine on the back end. And you still have Trent McDuffie. That's the other thing, too. You need to realize what the Chiefs have invested. They've invested in Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams, who have shown to be actually pretty good. You have Trent McDuffie, who was the all-pro, who locked down Debo in the Super Bowl. You have investments in the secondary, but if you lose Chris Jones, if you let him walk, who's stepping in place of Chris Jones? Nobody. You don't have anyone that comes close to Chris Jones on this D-line, and you're not going to have Charles Omenihu for the first half of the year. You got to have Chris Jones back, man. And not only do you not have Chris Jones if you let him go, but the entire defensive tackle room is basically free agents. So I think that's the bigger position of need, too. I think this is Chris Jones by a landslide.
Yeah, it sucks that L'Jarius Sneed is just kind of on the wrong side right now. The whole thing about 1 good year, L'Jarius Sneed has been consistently great. He's
been good. He's been good, but this was 1 elite year. His, the contract year. The contract year is undefeated. Therese Paylor always used to say that. And L'Jarius Sneed, you know that he was thinking about that contract year. And look, if he deserves his money, because I talked about this too in that video that I did. L'Jarius Sneed hasn't really gotten paid in his career, and he deserves that money. Chris Jones has gotten paid. Chris Jones has gotten at least 1 big contract. L'Jarius Sneed hasn't gotten that big deal. But I have been wrestling with the idea of tagging and trading him because I think you could get quite a lot. You also save the cap space, and think about the draft assets you could get too. I've been wrestling with the idea, man, and I think Chris Jones is more important here.
I just think it's easier to replace a corner than it is an elite defensive tackle.
Yeah,
And
Chris Jones is such a unicorn. Like in what
yeah.
he's a pass rushing defensive tackle, and yeah, he's really freaking good.
I think you can replace L'Jarius Sneed in the draft this year. I mean, what we've seen Brett Veach do is draft 2 all-pro corners in L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie, and really good corners in Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson. And so I think if they spent like a second-round draft pick on a corner, or even just threw in Chamari Connor played a lot late in the postseason. He's a guy that can be serviceable. Yeah, so the back end of the defense I'm not super worried about. But without Chris Jones, man, it's a scary thought. I don't know if this Chiefs team is the same. And I think the best case scenario would be to retain both of them. But
for sure,
you're probably going to have to pick one. And it's just Chris Jones is a more important player to have on this team. And so I think L'Jarius Sneed's been great in Kansas City. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. But I think that we're going to have to make that tough decision if we want to be competing for years to come.
I absolutely agree. I'm going to move on to the next topic, then we'll get you out here, Michael. But this has been a really efficient episode here, just crushing these topics. But I want to talk to you about wide receivers and free agency. We can do another episode maybe next week or something like that prior to free agency, talking about the other position groups and what we think and who we like. But wide receiver is probably one of the biggest ones Chiefs fans are talking about. And I'm just kind of curious to hear your thoughts. Like, are you wanting the Chiefs to make a big splash at wide receiver? Like, are you looking at a Mike Evans? Or like, personally, I feel like you don't need to make a huge splash. I mean, I'd just be happy with like a middle of the road guy, even like Tyler Boyd or Darnell Mooney. Like, those are quality veterans that raise the floor of this wide receiver room. Because in my opinion, man, after what we just saw this past season and what Mahomes was able to win with, I'm not asking for much. I'm not going to be greedy. I don't think you need to get a top of the market guy. I think you get a solid veteran, draft another guy, and you're set, really, honestly. And maybe get another running back in here so you can kind of use the running game more in this offense. I just really think that's all this offense needs. I don't think you have to go all out. And like, I know Chiefs fans are afraid of us like paying Gabe Davis or something like that from the Buffalo Bills. And like, Gabe Davis is far down my list, but like, even if they signed him, as long as it's not super steep, I'm like, I just feel like I don't even have the right to complain after the wide receiver core that we just saw Mahomes win a Super Bowl with.
Yeah, with the wide receivers, I think that currently you have to clean house. I don't want anybody. I don't want MVS. I don't want Kadarius Toney. I don't want Sky Moore. I want them all playing for a different team next year. And I think that, my big splash in free agency would be like signing Calvin Ridley. That I think would be an awesome, middle.
Is that what you want to do?
Yeah. I think if the Chiefs sign Calvin Ridley, draft one, we're back. Like, we are so back. You don't need Mike Evans. You don't need I know there's a lot of Chiefs fans that are in on Michael Pittman. I'm not, super high on Michael Pittman, but like you said, it's not going to take, 2 blockbuster wide receiver signings for this team to win a Super Bowl. We just saw Mahomes win it with garbage cans as his wide receivers. So
yeah, Marquise Brown too. He's another one. Like, he's not a high-end guy, but he's solid. He's got speed. He brings the deep ball back to this offense. This offense didn't have the deep ball this year. Marquise Brown gives you the deep ball. He brings that back to this offense. You got to respect him running those go routes and those verticals. So, like, even that would be a solid move. But I don't think you have to – I mean, I get what you're saying, like clean house, definitely. Like, I can get on board with that. I don't really care for Sky Moore anymore. I already feel like that's a failed draft pick. We shouldn't waste time on him. Kadarius Toney, it's an uphill battle for him to be on this team. MVS is gone at that cap hit. He's not coming back. But I like your Calvin Ridley suggestion. Like, I'm not saying I'd be mad if the Chiefs spent money on a wide receiver. I'm just saying they don't need to even spend all that much money, because like Tyler Boyd, I think I saw his projected market value was like $7 million a year. Like, if that's all it takes for Tyler Boyd, who I think could be a really good like number 2 next to Rashee Rice, assuming he takes a step forward, like, hey, I'll take that. But this is also something to consider with L'Jarius Sneed versus Chris Jones. If you're keeping both Sneed and Jones, I feel like you maybe kind of take yourself out on upgrading in a lot of other areas, or maybe making a Calvin Ridley type signing. I think if you keep Chris Jones, tag and trade Sneed, you could get a wide receiver. Then you could get another good defensive end and maybe bring back Willie Gay too if you want to. So the Chiefs will have options, but I don't know. I just threw a lot out there, Michael.
No, yeah. I mean, you'd have a lot of options if you were able to, tag and trade L'Jarius Sneed. And I think the biggest point that we're trying to make is that the Chiefs don't need, a ton of wide receiver star power, I guess. They just need wide receivers that can catch the football. And you can find those in the draft. I think they probably sign one in free agency, draft one pretty high in the draft. And then you've got Rashee Rice, a free agent signing, a draft pick. And outside of that, you still got Travis Kelce. The rest will just kind of figure itself out. Maybe not add another running back in the draft. They'll be fine. We just saw this team win a Super Bowl with Mecole Hardman catching the game-winning touchdown. They will be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both kind of agree on what they need to do at wide receiver. And there's not too much they could do that would make us unhappy. I mean, the bar is pretty low. We know the bar that the Chiefs need to clear, and it's not high. So, yeah, just get some dudes in here. Enough with these players that just because the problem so much with last year and why it failed was because the Chiefs just put way too much stock in guys that require question marks. We talked about it all season prior. It's I don't know about MVS. I don't know about Kadarius Toney. I don't know about Sky Moore. Cool, upside. Yeah. None of them were proven. And there's a bunch of guys in free agency this year that are proven. Go get a proven guy.
Yeah. It's not that hard. Just make the simple adjustments and get a couple more guys in here, and you'll be good to go, and you'll be a better offense.
For sure. We'll go ahead and wrap it up there, though, Michael. I mean, I think that was a good episode. I know. I mean, look, it's Saturday night, man. I'm not going to hold you any longer. So, yeah, with all that being said, before we wrap up, why don't you go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube at KC Sports Report, on social media at The Michael Darcy on Twitter and Instagram. Go check me out on the Bleacher Report mobile app. I think you can find me at Michael_Darcy. Go follow me on that. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yeah. And that'll all be in the description as always, as well as the links to listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those good platforms. You don't always have to watch the video. Just keep that in mind. And then as far as my stuff, Show Me Football, go ahead and subscribe. And check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. But yeah, guys, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And we will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs.